Welcome back to the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside team expert Jimmy Stein right there on that top box. And then, of course, the return of Tim Watts, site publisher for BOL, fresh from Barcelona, a little Seville, a little Spain, for Tim Watts. The cultured one, the well-traveled one, Tim Watts. Welcome back, Tim.
It's good to be back. We did us a breaking news story
From
while I was over there, and the volume wouldn't work on YouTube. We had to do it on my phone, the most awkward thing Travis and I have ever done professionally.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
And we figured it out. We did, so we're not exactly going to be confused for IT guys,
Yeah,
but I was pretty proud of that effort, all things considered. But good to have you back, Tim. I'm sure it was a
good to be
great
back.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I missed you guys. I was watching the shows. Some good stuff went down, especially basketball wise. You had a lot happening. I mentioned to get in on that, and you know, the the softball team to World Series, baseball team to regionals. It's been a lot of activity for our alleged slow time
Oh,
of the
yeah,
year, right?
absolutely.
That's out the
Yeah.
window.
I
Slow
hear the
time's out
show.
the window.
I hear the show's big in Europe, by the way, kind of like some of the musical acts that are big in Europe. I hear we're big in Europe.
Well, I
So,
was doing a Spanish version.
right.
I did it live.
You
They'd
picked it
gather
up
around me.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, just amazing the fluency that Tim's able to pull that off with. But you kind of talked about it, Tim and Jimmy. Let's get into it because the news last week, as much as anything basketball related, and Tim, Jimmy, I wanted to get both your thoughts on potential starting fives, or for that matter, the potential for starting eights. Because when you look at the depth of this team, the combinations seem kind of endless. And Tim, you had been on it all along, man, right there on the round table with us about feedback for Mark Sears and Jaron Stevenson and what it sort of looked like for those guys as they moved through the draft process. But even with that, was there just a slice, a tinge of you that was maybe surprised that both are going to be back?
Not really. I said early on that would be my betting stance.
Mm-hmm.
Jaron's the one that interests me the most because of how the NBA is. They're drafting on potential. You're talking about a big guy that can shoot the ball well. He had some moments. You saw people writing him up a little bit. I mean, you know what Mark is. I still think Mark's going to play professional basketball somewhere. I think he's going to make a career out of it. At least 5 or 6 years along that window. He's just too good of a shooter. But Jaron's pretty intriguing. To me, the biggest surprise is it kind of went as we expected. There wasn't a surprise, and you kind of were wondering if there would be after last year with Quinterly and Bediako. So a little bit of that, once bitten or twice shy kind of scenario. But I think the feedback and everything they got was expected. The process went down as expected. We didn't. We thought Jaron Stevenson and his family and the people around him would not make a rash decision. It would be an educated decision, which is what he did. And I've seen some complaints on the round table, the message board. I've had people mention it to me like it was crazy for him to consider, going through the draft process. I think he was closer to being a draftable guy by far than a non-draftable guy. I think there's a chance he could actually win in the second round. I don't think that was his intentions, though.
You talk about upside, and Jaron certainly has that. When you look at the physical attributes and the potential for that, and the versatility he's going to bring to a team at that level at some point down the road. But Jimmy, this between basketball and football guys that we've seen in the past, you can get the feedback from the people who matter the most, and the decision still be made. We saw it just a year ago, I got to think, to go ahead and take the plunge. Sounds simple enough. Tim said it, no irrational thought process involved there, but it's not always a given either.
No, and if it wasn't for NIL, I think this is very possibly a different outcome. It's a different world now. I think if this was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, this probably is a different outcome altogether. But now returning to college is not only something that's a good idea academically, it's a good idea financially. These guys can make more money playing college basketball than they can do many other things that are not in the NBA, and you can go get some feedback, find out that you're not going to be paid like an NBA player in the NBA, and go to the college game and make substantial money. Certainly Mark Sears will. Jaron Stevenson's going to do pretty well too. So I think this is sort of a product of the new world. This time it worked out for Alabama. Last year it didn't. I guess Alabama was due some good luck after the Charles Bediako situation a year ago. But very excited to have Sears and Stevenson back. This means Alabama can compete with anyone in college basketball next year.
And so, Tim, Charlie Potter did a great job for us. If you haven't seen it yet, by the way, that update from late last week, go check it out. Charlie with a starting 5 scenario for Alabama men's basketball to crank up the 2024-2025 season. So let's hear Tim Watts, because I think Jimmy and I were both sort of in line with Charlie's too. When you think about Mark Sears and you think about Latrell Wrightsell, young blood coming in as the AAC co-player of the year. You got Amori coming in as your 5. And then, of course, Grant Nelson, you figure, is the 4 in that lineup. What would yours look like, Tim?
Man, that's tough. I've seen the discussion, just how the minutes are going to be divided, who to start. I feel comfortable with, I think, Cliff, Grant, and Mark Sears as the starters. I think that's kind of the low-hanging fruit you can snag. But then after that, you really get into a mess. I personally like Aiden Holloway as a guy that could start, just because I think he's young. He's a spark plug. He can be the facilitator. You can get Mark out on that wing early in the game and maybe get some run outs with that team that you've got. And that last spot, I mean, I kind of want to lead Youngblood, but with not seeing him like enough, it's been hard for me to figure out that 5th spot. And for me, Aiden's just the preference, because I think that him and Sears running the floor together with Cliff and Grant filling lanes, I think to me that would be ideally what I'd want to see in a basketball team. Because I do think Aiden Holloway is going to be a good basketball player. I think he's going to fit into the system well. I think he's probably didn't have the year he expected. There's a certain amount of humbleness, and I'm going to show them that talking to people near him that he feels. So I do think that he's a perfect kind of blend to go with Mark.
Yeah, Jimmy, I guess pace is something you have to take into account here. And with the lineup that we talked about that has young blood in it and Wrightsell in it to go along with Mark, I still think you can push it well enough, because even your bigs are pretty versatile other than Amori. And Amori can run the floor, which is what you want as a finisher in these situations. It's a good point by Tim, though. I think if you put Holloway out there with Sears, now you're going from fast to turbo potentially.
I think November and December, there's going to be a ton of, I don't like the word experiment. I've never liked that word when it comes to lineups. I mean, you're trying to find the best 5. The best 5 aren't always, by the way, guys, the best 5 isn't always the 5 best players. It's the 5 best players that play together and can produce the most on the floor as a unit. I think there's going to have to mix and match early to find out who those 5 are for end of game situations. But until then, look, there's 13 guys that can help you win basketball games on this team. 13. I've never said that before, I don't think, in the history of Alabama basketball. There's been, it'll be a fun topic all summer long, guys, about, is this the best starting 5 in Alabama history? Because I think whether it's the best starting 13 in history isn't even a discussion. I mean, this is the best roster from 1 to 13 Alabama basketball's ever had. And I think the best coach, Nate Oates, he's going to use all 13 in a way that helps the team win. And I think November and December, he's going to spend a lot of time looking for, okay, who are my best 5 in end of game situations?
It's pretty crazy for a team that lost Nick Pringle, lost Sam Walters, lost Ryland Griffin. As this process moved along, Tim, it was like Nate just kept checking boxes in those 13 spots. And then it gets down to 12 and 13, and you're thinking, is this guy pretty much going to go lights out with Sears and Stevenson coming back? I mean, usually, as you know, you get to that 12th, 13th spot, you may be scrambling late to just sort of fill a spot, but not in this case.
No, I mean, if you laid the checklist, you know how they do that, the dream class, the posters on the message board, they'll have the dream class, and it's always, it's unrealistic. They know it, but this is the perfect scenario. When Nate Oates did it and actually hit his dream class, I mean, it's absurd. I mean, Since the Final Four, every domino that has fallen Nate Oates' way. I mean, every single thing from we're not even talking about Phelan, for instance. We don't even bring him up, and I mean, we're talking a top 30 national guy, 5-star contention, highly recruited, committed to Kansas, and we barely get a chance to discuss him because of everybody else that came in. But yeah, going down that list, Cliff obviously he wasn't the biggest one because of I'm not saying that from from a roster standpoint, but from a fan standpoint, nothing was bigger than Cliff. I don't think, not Grant, not Mark, not Jaron. I think Cliff had developed just a following, and partly because of Preston Murphy did such a good job on social media. Clifford the Big Red Dog, the hype, Carolina, but Cliff had a life of its own. I mean, he dominated the message boards. And I can't really think of a basketball player dominating the message board discussion like Cliff did in a very long time. I mean, but Cliff, so to get Cliff and then to close out with those two. And look, we said if Mark doesn't come back and Jaron doesn't come back, this is a top 3 roster. This is a team being predicted into some Final Fours. If they come back, you're looking at number 1, and I've seen a lot of number 1s. There's always going to be the doubters that explain to you. I mean, I literally saw 2 discussions on different message boards of how Alabama got worse, which was really some Olympic level coping mental gymnastics. But obviously Nate Oates did, he finished this how he wanted to, especially coming off last year.
Jimmy Jace Lambert checks in here in the show chat, and you're more than welcome to do that. And our viewers and subscribers at BamaOnLine.com, we'd love to hear from you. Appreciate all of the check-ins here on the show. Jay says, or asks, when's the last time Alabama basketball was ranked higher preseason than Alabama football? And look, it's not like Alabama football this time around is 17th, right? Yeah. You have to look long and hard to find a men's basketball and football combo that were preseason top 4 or 5, I would guess. When you think about maybe Florida under Billy Donovan there late, perhaps with Urban coming in, I think that synced up there for a minute. It's hard to come up with those combinations, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think the answer to that question, it's a great question from Jace. I believe the answer is I can't give you the specific year, the specifics of the rankings, but there was a season or two when Mark Gottfried had things going at Alabama pretty well and basketball, and Mike Shula was dealing with an NCAA sanctioned football program that wasn't ranked in the top 10 nor playing like a top 10 team. But I think that did happen a time or two in the midst of the Gottfried era when football was struggling a bit. It's nothing like it is now. Now, both teams will be probably top 5. And when I say probably, I know the basketball team will. Yeah. I think the football team will be ranked. I'm going to say right now, guys, guessing today around 5th, I think in the AP poll, 4th or 5th. But the basketball team is going to be higher than that. That's amazing.
Alio124 here in the chat, Tim. This team reminds me a lot of a good pair of cargo shorts. Has plenty of pockets, which allows for plenty of versatility. Is this like your burner?
See, Tim? He gets it. He gets it. I can't be the burner and actually doing the live show, but I'm not saying me and Alio cooked this up, but I'm not saying we're in cahoots, but maybe we are. But I also had a good moment last week when Duke Johnson popped up at the On 3 Elite show wearing his cargo shorts. I said, "Here we go. It's epidemic. It's the trend is coming." But that's not a bad comparison because you can reach into any pocket and pull out a roster. I think honestly, some of the practices will be better than some of the games. I think practice because you won't play in time. Nate Oates has got the ultimate. Go earn it. We're practicing
and
right
play defense. By the way,
right now is when you earn your game time in practice. So you're going to have 3 guys pissed off. They're not even on the floor in a 5-on-5, right? Yeah. You're going to have 3 guys over there fuming, ready to get in. So you're going to have the depth to go at practice. You're going to have them going. I like to see. We ought to do a draft one day. We ought to do a draft where we all pick 4 players. And then do a little round robin. I mean, there'll be somebody left. There's still going to be somebody left out that was good, but the talent
you
there.
You could do a 3-on-3 draft, like you were going to play 3-on-3.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. But I do think that this team, the depth is so
Stop giving away
strong.
content ideas right here live on the show, by the way, Tim. You know,
I'm
that'll
giving
be
y'all
popping
work
up.
ideas.
That'll be
I'm giving
popping up
y'all work
somewhere else.
ideas.
I
I'm out
like
here
it
just,
though.
I'm handing out assignments left and right. I do think that, like, you're going to see, I think the season could be similar to the NCAA tournament where you have guys that hasn't got a lot of minutes that had a great week of practice, found the right moment, and was hot. I think we're going to see guys like that run out in different games. And we know what Mark's going to do, right? I mean, it's not Mark's
Going to
going to
get
be
his
Mark.
20.
You know what Grant and Cliff, those guys are probably going to do. They're going to be pretty consistent players. Like on a bad night, Grant will have 6 points, but he should have 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, all that stuff. But these other guys, they're going to have a chance. So we saw it in the NCAA tournament, guys stepping up. Mo stepped up. Jaron had a monster moment.
Huge.
I think we're going to see that during the season where everybody gets a little turn, everybody gets a piece.
And Jimmy, it makes you kind of NCAA tournament proof, right? Because you're wide open to the draw. You don't know how that's going to work. So styles come into
Yeah.
it. I think for Nate, he's probably seen where a couple times a few years ago he got caught up against a style that his team really couldn't adjust or wasn't built for. And when you have this kind of versatility, regardless of draw, and anything can happen, as we know in the NCAA tournament, you can go 2 for 28 from 3 or something like that, but still have a good chance to make those adjustments. You can go small, you can go big, really pick a style, and you should be able to deal with it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier, Travis. I think playing defense is going to be your key to getting more minutes than you might expect. That's going to be the number one thing. When you recruit all these guys, you recruit these guys with accolades. They're all great athletes, but mostly you're recruiting guys who have really gaudy offensive numbers. A lot of what they learn to do in college is on the other end of the floor. And all 13 of these guys are capable to help you win on the offensive end. It's going to be who earns minutes on the defensive end in practice and, defensive shutdown guys. That's one thing this past team was obviously missing. They weren't great defensively. I think signing Cliff Amore and signing Aiden Sherrill out of high school, that's going to be huge in terms of improving the team defensively. But really, they have to be better even in the backcourt defensively. So I would look at guys like Chris Youngblood, who looks like a defender. Chris Youngblood looks like a football defender. I mean, he's an incredible athletically. Guys like him, Houston Mallett, let's see how they can defend, because they might end up playing a lot more minutes than anyone might suspect if they can really do it on that end of the floor.
Mallet at 6'6" can shoot the three, can guard some different guys, you got to think. So very nice pickup in his own right. Let's shift gears, guys, and talk some football. We talked some tight end last week, and Tim, we were sort of outlining some production scenarios with Charlie Potter on his predictions piece that the staff members of BOL provided for that update late in the week last week. Wanted to get your thoughts on the ceiling for this group, especially with Caleb Odom apparently going to settle in there at wide receiver, CJ Dupree, Robbie Oots, Josh Cuevas coming in from Washington. You've got Danny Lewis, a young player that you still like. Ty Lockwood's just a second-year guy. Numbers aren't an issue. As we saw, a couple of 3 tight ends left the program, and you're still in a good spot in terms of numbers. I don't know if there's a big-time NFL guy in this group. Maybe there is. But how do you sort of see it as it goes into year one under Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Odom takes a little of the sexiness out, right? He was a 5-star guy, and he was never going to be. We already knew he wasn't going to be an inline tight end. We knew they were going to move him around everywhere, anyways. Basically, make him a wide receiver. But losing that name from the room changes things perception-wise. But talent-wise, I see guys that do. I mean, we went back when Kalen DeBoer was first hired, and I know you and I once talked about the tight end screens they use and what they're looking for with that guy, that sleek guy, kind of slick, coming through almost a tunnel screen type. And you got to like CJ Dupree in there. I think he just didn't get a lot of opportunities right there. I think he's going to be that big physical guy. I think he's a seam guy as well. Still go back to that South Florida play with Ty Simpson, which was, to me, one of the best offensive plays, and it was needed. That was a big play in that game, but that pass, that catch, that route was really standing out, so we know he's got some potential. And I continue to hear good things about Josh Cuevas. I mean, he's been in that system. which you have to like. Two, he came with them, which means they like him, obviously. And again, came in the middle of the night with a homemade edit. We thought he was a walk-on at the time. We were all trying to figure. That's the night Keon Saab had all the drama where Keon was in Tuscaloosa, but the people close to him were saying, no, not yet. He hasn't committed yet, even though he was in. So we were on hold. And then Josh just quietly snuck in with his homemade edit. But I've heard nothing but good things about him from people close to the program, and think he can fit in. Other than that, you got Robbie. Like, Robbie had so many nice plays last year that if you're a football guy you loved, I don't think necessarily fans jumped out and saw it, but he had so many nice blocks and things he did for him. And then you've got, Jay Lindsey, who might not be ready coming from small ball, but a coach's son and a guy that really is, the thing about Jay, and again, going from that level of football in high school, small ball, to SEC is going to be a little bit harder for him, obviously. But this isn't a guy that couldn't have played at Thompson. This isn't a guy. He could have played anywhere in the country. Guy's absolutely nasty. His defensive clips are probably better than his offensive clips. He's a monster, so he's going to be tough. He's going to come in and fight you. So it's a room that, like I said, it's not going to jump out at you losing Caleb, but it's a room that's going to be able to do the little things they want to do, I think.
Yeah, Jimmy, and also special teams from this area. I think you've got a handful of these guys that are going to be able to help you on coverage and return units. But as far as the top end guys in this group on the offensive side of the ball, and thinking bigger picture, do you see a pro in this group, or is it more of a collective situation where they can get the job done?
Yeah, I'd hate to make some large monetary bet on one of these guys being a big time NFL player. Although I think a couple of them are capable of getting a shot. I mean, CJ Dupree is going to get a shot at the NFL. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind CJ will be in an NFL camp next fall. Now, whether he'll be there as a drafted player in the middle or late rounds, or even as an undrafted free agent, I don't know. But CJ Dupree is going to get a shot at the NFL. He's pretty good. Josh Cuevas, I think, has that sort of upside because he's showing up a gifted pass receiver. Nobody talks about it, of course, but his freshman season in FCS football, he had almost 1,000 yards receiving, which is nuts for that position. So Josh Cuevas, to me, is really intriguing in terms of his upside, but he's going to have to prove at the SEC level that he can get guys blocked. So he's got a lot to prove too. When you don't have a Brock Bowers at this position, your next best situation is when you can mix and match based on down and distance. And that's what I really like about this group. Maybe there's not a Brock Bowers, but what there is, hey, it's a 3rd and 2, and we need 2 guys that can get ends blocked. Hey, it's 3rd and 10. We need a tight end that can get out there and run a pass route like Josh Cuevas. I think this group can mix and match really well. There's some, I think, above average blockers, CJ, Robbie. There's the intriguing pass catcher in Josh Cuevas. There's Danny Lewis, who's a little bit good at both. And then you got a couple of young guys that I think will also be mix and match guys later in their careers, like Jay Lindsey, who looks like a CJ Dupree type to me as he gains some muscle mass.
Yeah, the thing about making sort of NFL predictions about this position is that tight ends, even decent ones, are at a premium because offenses at the high school level nowadays, they're not really producing traditional tight ends or tight ends like they once did with all this spread offense and the way that offense works these days. So a guy like Miller Forrestall comes to mind. I still see him in transactions bouncing around the NFL, catching on with teams. He's probably got to be at the point where he's collecting a pension, which is ultimately the goal for those guys. Jimmy, before we let you out of here, diamonds, unfortunately for Alabama baseball and softball, aren't forever. Memorable run, certainly, for Patrick Murphy's team. One of the top 6 teams left standing when it was all said and done out at the Women's College World Series. It ends once again to those Florida Gators. What is it about Florida and OKC? But just a season had a little bit of everything. And for probably far too long for a lot of Alabama fans, it had too much lack of production at the offensive side. But the one thing I'll say, and you saw this against Florida over the weekend too, was grit, resiliency. This team certainly had plenty of that.
Yeah, some championship DNA in the program, I think, is what propelled them at the end. And I think what's a little disappointing is just when the fans were really getting into this team and behind this team, finally, after a long regular season of maybe a lot of negativity to some extent, the postseason was full of positivity and everybody getting behind the team. And then, of course, the inevitable loss. Everybody but one team has a loss at the end. And this team was never going to do that. By the way, I mean, for those disappointed, I'm disappointed too. But whoever felt all during the year that this was a Final Four softball team? Had they beaten Florida, they'd have been in the Final Four of softball. This was never a Final Four level team. I think that it was a remarkable run to get to where they did. Now the challenge in the offseason to me is getting better. They got to get better in the transfer portal. I think that's where they can really put together another Oklahoma City level roster next year. They've already got one commitment from the portal that looks really strong. The girl from Northern Iowa who looked like a fantastic hitter. They need a couple more bats and at least another arm. But if they add those pieces, I don't want to be the guy betting against Patrick Murphy being back in the World Series a year from now.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple, the to-do list, Tim. Punch on the offensive side. Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, Alabama had that. Their sports season's been a little bit like Rocky. When you think about it, there's been some late inning rallies, some late scores, some onside kicks. I mean, you had a football team that nobody expected in the college football playoffs. They were not expected to beat Georgia. I don't know of a single human being outside the BOL staff that actually predicted it.
Well, I mean, it's Georgia, so we had to pick Alabama.
Had to do it. I mean, we felt they were a heavy favorite there. And then turned around and had the drama getting into the playoffs with FSU, had a basketball team that everyone said would be done early, go to the Final Four, and then you had a softball team do it. So it's been we've heard a lot of, I didn't think that. I didn't think it was a Final Four team. I didn't think it was a College World Series. I didn't think it was a college football playoff. So Bama's had some rocky, little rope-a-dope, punching them out.
Absolutely.
Coming back late.
Leave it. Our guy Tim he'll bring it back to Hollywood one way or the other, and I love it.
It's coming with
personally. I love it. He's going to get us right there. Baseball. I guess back-to-back regional appearances. That's a big building block for a program that had gone far too long without that. But Rob Vaughn in his first season, I think it's fair to say a disappointing end. You go 1-out in Hoover, and then you 2-Q to two Florida teams, not named Florida State, in the Tallahassee regionals. So, Jimmy, quick summary synopsis of what we saw on the baseball front in year one under Coach Vaughn and what you're sort of anticipating moving forward.
I think they did really well. As a matter of fact, I think Coach Vaughn, a little bit like Coach Murphy, sort of overachieved with what he had. Frankly, when Riley Quick went down in the opening weekend, and then you had a couple of relievers like Alcock and a couple of other guys who just couldn't go this year. And then on top of a couple of relievers who frankly disappointed and had lesser years than it was believed to be. They just weren't as good as they were a year ago, more than a couple of those guys. You had all that up, and it's amazing that they made it to the regionals at all. And I think that's a testament to the kind of coaching this team's going to get under Rob Vaughn and his staff. And I think there's all sorts of reason for optimism there. Like you said, Travis, back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances. That hasn't happened in a decade at Alabama. So you've got something to build on. You've even got a core coming back. If you can keep them back, I mean, this is a new world. There's baseball poachers. I mean, that didn't exist, also 10 years ago. It exists now. So you got to hold on to what you got and then go to the portal, add a few pieces. And I'm a buyer when it comes to Alabama baseball stock right now. That this is an ascending program, even adding Texas and Oklahoma to the league next year.
Yeah, watching Shelton hit a 3-run bomb for the Gators against Oklahoma State last night, his 20th of the season, was a painful reminder of the poaching that is out there these days in the world of college baseball and elsewhere around collegiate athletics. Hey, Jimmy, as always, man, appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Hang out with Jimmy, the rest of us at the round table. By the way, if you haven't subscribed yet to our YouTube channel, you can do that right now. Just hit that subscribe button. Hit a thumbs up for us if you don't mind. Hit the like button. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our YouTube content as it drops. Jimmy, look forward to catching up again real soon.
Hey, can't wait, guys. Have a good week.
There he
See you,
goes.
Jimmy.
Team expert, Jimmy Stein. Let me get this thing straightened out. This is what happens, when you host and direct and everything else. Let's see. Speaking of stars, there's our guy, Andrew Bone. And so we're going to segue now into some Watts and Bone recruiting talk. Just a little bit of a weekend in Tuscaloosa, right, Andrew? Just a little bit of news coming out on the recruiting front, and we certainly want to get that going with both of you guys. And I'm not going to wait. I'm going to the quarterback position because it sounds like that that momentum that you sensed Alabama was picking up in relation to a Texas quarterback of note, kind of carried over into the weekend and through the weekend, Andrew.
Yeah, Keelan Russell out of Duncanville High School in Texas, one of Alabama's top overall targets. This is a guy that Alabama's been recruiting for the last several months, but he was never able to get to Tuscaloosa for a visit this spring. He was originally supposed to visit for the 8A game, wasn't able to make it, and then Coach Sheridan went out and saw him during the spring evaluation period, and he was offered almost immediately. I think Coach Sheridan went out and saw him on the 23rd of April. And on the 24th, he had an offer. And that was significant because this was the only quarterback offer of the entire spring evaluation period. And he was the first offer, I think, since January. So, they've really zoned in on Keelan Russell. They were able to bring him in for an official visit. Of course, other schools are heavily pursuing him as well. He took an official visit already to SMU, where he's been committed since September. And then he also took a visit to Ole Miss. Now, other schools like Florida, where he's supposed to visit this weekend, Oregon, supposed to visit on the 21st, all trying to pry him away from SMU. But I think Alabama did a really good job with him this weekend based on a lot of the comments that his father and him had to say. And we've got both of those stories on BamaOnLine.
Yeah, great stuff right there with us at BOL. So you're going to want to check that out. So much content right now. We're going to show it to you, give you a little taste of it here in just a little bit. But talk about that, Tim, in relation to Keelan Russell and kind of where you sit with that situation and kind of how you envision that playing out here.
Well, the quarterback position was kind of rough for Kalen DeBoer when they got here. I mean, we looked it up. I didn't even realize it, I don't think, until you looked up. And I think 90% of the top 20, 30 quarterbacks were committed already when Kalen DeBoer. I mean, a lot of them, a lot of quarterback dominoes had already fallen. I mean, they still had guys they could recruit, but they hadn't seen it. A lot of these guys were guys they hadn't really recruited at Washington, hadn't seen them live, going through the process, going through their evaluation, narrowing it down. We saw Deuce McKnight getting some love early on. And then we saw Keelan pop up. And I think Nick Sheridan going out to seeing him live. That was the biggest thing. We were waiting for Nick Sheridan to see him. And then we were waiting for Alabama to offer, which they did. And once they offered, it's picked up steadily since then. I think the Russell side of things really likes Alabama. I think there's a good relationship going. Still some recruiting left to be done. Obviously, committed to SMU. They won't just back down from it. But I think Alabama's in good shape as of right now.
Good spot to be for the Alabama Crimson Tide with one of the fastest rising quarterbacks in the class of 2025 in Keelan Russell. Let's talk to Andrew Bone about an offensive tackle of note, Ty Haywood. I guess the feeling was that it wasn't so much Alabama going into his visit to Tuscaloosa, but what's that feedback been like in the days since? I know Joseph Hastings has done a great job for us there at BamaOnLine and all the interviews. Chad Simmons is thrown in some as well. But what are you hearing right now that maybe catches your ear?
I think we talked about it last week on the show that Ty Haywood was probably going to be the most intriguing visitor for Alabama this past weekend. He grew up a big Alabama fan, really ever since he was 5 years old. Diehard Alabama fan, lived in Mississippi when he was younger. Then he and his mom moved to Texas. So he's been in Texas for a while, had not been able to get back to Tuscaloosa for a visit, but finally made that trip back and really was just blown away by everything. Was blown away by the coaching staff, the facilities, everything they've got there. We've heard a lot of positive buzz from that visit. But one thing I want everybody to kind of remember is nobody ever really has a bad official visit. Everybody's going to have a great time. I mean, they are, getting treated like absolute rock stars on these trips. There's going to be these high emotions after visits. They're going to say a lot of positive things, and then they're going to get home, and then they're going to take more visits before they make their decision. So they're still going to have great trips coming up. And Ty Haywood's got some visits, including a trip to A&M. I think Florida State, and the perceived favorite before the Alabama visit, which was Oklahoma. So got those visits still coming up, but I think Alabama, really made a strong impression on him this weekend. Talked about the relationship with Coach Cap. Coach Cap actually started recruiting him when he was at Baylor earlier this year. So that relationship goes back a little ways. And, I think that Alabama really made up a lot of ground with Ty Haywood this weekend. And now we're going to be talking about him a lot more. But like I said, still some visits coming up, including that last weekend to Oklahoma.
And
Tim, one of the things on Ty I found out when I was talking to some sources yesterday, Oklahoma had felt they were in really good shape. And yesterday, around afternoon, they were worried about Alabama now. So that's not just, that's talking to people, probably talking to that family. I think Alabama did make a huge impression from that. And it was good. It's worth noting what other schools think, because there's nothing more awkward than, hey, this kid's deciding between Bama, Georgia, and LSU. We reach out to Shea Dixon and Rusty Manziel and us, and every school thinks they're getting him. So we run into those dominoes sometimes. We gotta figure out which one's the real one. But that's a case where it's good to hear another school is actually worried about Alabama, and they felt they were in good shape.
Or they may not have an offer from one of those other schools.
Yeah, they love to put the hat on the table, and the Bama fans on the round table get mad about it. It's pretty Alabama's been a hat on the table for almost 20 years now, so doesn't seem to be changing.
And Tim, it sounds like, there's more visitors on the way. We'll get more into this throughout the week, obviously at BamaOnLine.com, but just a continuation coming up here of critical offensive line targets for Kalen DeBoer and his staff.
Yeah, I just think overall, how aggressive. That's the one thing about this staff. I think aggressive is the word I would describe this recruiting staff the most, because they had a ton of campers, right? And then they said, what the hell, we're going to throw in 12 official visitors. We're going to blow it out. So these guys don't mind. And we saw that in the spring. We saw it in the spring where we're looking for, hey, 4, 5, 6 big name guys to come through, and they were having a dozen a day sometimes. So I know that aggressive wise, but yeah, offensive line, they're going to be highly focused there. Cap does a great job. He's good with relationships. And you also got to factor in Courtney Morgan, who's, leading that recruiting charge and is an offensive lineman. And we all know that, like, if you played a position and you're a recruiter, you're always kind of partial to your position, right? I don't know if they'll admit it, but, you look back, Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, they were always partial to the defensive back position where they played. So I think that's pretty standard. So offensive line is going to be a highly judged position. They're going to have a lot of eyes on it. They're going to be very particular, but they've lined up so many good names. If they hit on 4 of their top 8 guys, I'd say it could possibly be the best class Alabama's ever signed on the offensive line. And I don't say that lightly. Yeah. They just got a lot of guys they've lined up right now.
They've got some guys also from Southern California, and the modern day duo, and Chuck McDonald and Jordan Davison visited Tuscaloosa over the weekend. Andrew, I'm going to go with McDonald and sort of just the cornerback outlook as it stands right now following the weekend. What can you tell us on both those fronts?
Yeah, so Chuck McDonald out of modern day, 6'1", 180-pound defensive back. This is a kid that didn't even know if he was going to have Alabama in his top group a month ago, and then got a visit from Kane Womack and Coach Mo Lindquist, and it kind of changed everything. Decided to put them in his top 4. Took a visit this weekend and came out and said that Alabama was at the top of the list following the weekend visit. So thought that was pretty big positive, but at the same time, more visits still ahead. Georgia next weekend. He's got a trip to Oregon. Also has a trip to USC where he's visited more than anywhere else. So still a busy month ahead, but it's going to be making a decision a little bit later on this summer. I think the modern day connection in Tuscaloosa has certainly helped because he spent a lot of time with Xavier Brown. Xavier Brown, obviously a former 5-star, modern day kid that was his official visit host of the week over the weekend. Also spent some time with Damani Jackson, and also spent time with Zay Mincy, another former 5-star. And I think the biggest takeaway from our conversation with Chuck was just the positivity that those guys were talking about with Alabama. They loved everything about Alabama. Xavier Brown and Zay Mincy, 2 former 5-stars that were recruited by Nick Saban, Travaris Robinson, guys who are no longer here, guys who could have easily left the program and transferred out and gone somewhere else because they didn't really have much of a connection with Alabama before Nick Saban, T-Rob started recruiting them, but they stayed on board. They said nothing has really changed about the program. They absolutely love it, and they were heavily recruiting Chuck to Alabama this weekend. So that was that was great for them, and he may even try to get back to Tuscaloosa later this summer. But great interview with Chuck that we have on BOL right now, talking about his overall weekend in Tuscaloosa. And DB board is going to be interesting because you got Grayson Littleton coming in this weekend for an official visit. He's already visited Alabama twice this spring, so this is going to be his 3rd trip for the official. Dejon Lee coming in later on this month on the 21st, 5-star corner out of California, and then. We talked to Naheem Alford the other day, number 1 player in the state of Alabama out of Parker. He's been committed to Ohio State since February, but he is going to take some visits. He was at Auburn this weekend. I know he's going to go to Oregon a little bit later on this month, and he's going to be in Tuscaloosa potentially as early as this week. So, I don't want to say he's on flip watch at all because I don't think that's the case, but he is at least giving some other programs an opportunity to continue to recruit him, including Alabama.
Tim, tell us about Jordan Davison a little bit, what you're getting there, and just the running back situation in general, because it does seem like there are some moving pieces, even though Alabama currently does have a commitment at the spot.
Yeah, I just think running back, last year I didn't feel running back was a particularly strong year. I think this year's kind of in that same boat. There's not like a guy that just jumps out at you. And, Alabama's still, I think, fighting that Justice Hayes. That name is pretty heavy. I mean, people recruits for some reason you would have thought like Justice wasn't even a consensus 5-star guy, but recruits know who Justice is. Maybe it's the cool name or whatever. Or they knew what the industry didn't know. He's a little bit of a badass. He's got that potential to be a late 1st-round pick. But yeah, I mean, you got those guys coming in. Jordan's been before. I mean, anytime a guy comes from California for an unofficial visit, it's a big deal. But to come back on an official visit, obviously Alabama's in it. Another guy that's going to take visits, Ohio State, I believe, is one of them. They're Alabama's got some running backs. Ohio State's crossed over with them. Georgia's another one. Alabama's crossed over a little bit, but I think that position's kind of working itself out. I mean, they've had guys they liked, AK Deer, who committed. I think they've haven't really shut the door on that, but you're kind of like at some point you got to choose your guy, and I think they're willing in that process now at the running back position. Still got Anthony committed. He's a guy. He took a visit to Ohio State. Still says he's committed. So the running backs, it's going to be interesting to me simply because there's not like a big name guy that they're after, or the biggest names they were after is committed elsewhere. So, and again, there's still 7 months till signing day.
And there is a good bit of time until that earlier signing day that we're going to experience in 2024. But it's never too early, right, to talk camp season, because it is also officially underway at the University of Alabama. Andrew, late last week, we did a recruiting roundup here on the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Talked about some of the offers that were already starting to come from camps. Anything else that you can add from over the weekend, maybe? I'm sure, as we've got everything updated right there at BamaOnLine.com that has transpired since we last met.
Yeah, I think one offer that really stood out to me was Sendarian Morgan, in-state wide receiver out of Benjamin Russell High School, measured in at just over 6'3.5", over 200 pounds, and he ran a 4.55 in the 40. That's pretty good for a rising junior, and certainly a guy that is officially on Alabama's radar. He was extended an offer, and I don't think this is one of those offers where you still need to see a little bit more out of him this fall. I think this is the one that Alabama is certainly going to be pressing for. They certainly want as a part of their 2026 class. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about him. Talked to Morgan the other day, and Alabama was his dream school growing up, house full of Alabama fans. But as of right now, still plans on waiting at least a little while before making that decision. One other guy I'll mention is a 27 player, Corey Hadley, ranked actually as a wide receiver, but is recruited by Alabama as a defensive back. And we talked about this last week. We were going to see a lot of probably 26, probably a lot of 27 offers. A lot of guys that were going to get evaluated. Extended an offer. Maybe some guys that we would see a little bit more during the season. But Corey Hadley was one of the guys that I was told was one of the standouts of the camp. 27 defensive back out of Sandy Creek High School over in Georgia. So Alabama's going to be heavily recruiting the state of Georgia for a long time.
Doesn't sound like the Crimson Tide is going away in the Peach State, that's for sure. Hey, Tim, never too late either for 2025s to make a big impression in a camp setting. It sounds like for the second year in a row, a prospect with ties to Germany has been able to do that. And JJ Hain, I'm not sure if I'm getting that right. Yeah, well, Tim's he's a world traveler.
I called him Steve. So
okay, so we got another Steve.
Everybody's Steve. If I can't say the last name, I'm just going with Steve.
Well, you check out JJ's tape, man. This dude's about 6'5", 270. And you look at the potential there at a position that has extreme value. There's a lot to like in this latest DL target for the 2025 class.
Yeah, I always watched the film because I thought Freddie Roach had found the ultimate hustle. Like, hey, coach, I need to go recruit in Germany. You know what I mean? I need to go. You know what I mean? I need to go over there and check things out. But they've obviously got some monster guys, and we saw our guy Steve, just physically impressive. The football's obviously picking up. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago we had a guy with a 24/7 that went to Europe to see guys. Wasn't a loaded camps, probably what you might expect, but some of their top end guys are definitely standing out. They had a couple guys they liked when they went into in the camp setting that they offered. We saw them tweeting offers out not too far after the camp. So guys that that made impressions. And again, you can't really beat a camp offer, and I mean that's we have seen you, we've seen what you can do. We like you, and also in the camp, you can put them in the positions you want them to see and get exactly what you want out of them, which you can't always do in a game. You can't always get. You might have a 6'4" guy you're projecting on the interior offensive line at tackle when you actually want to see him. Can he pull? Can he snap? And you can actually do that in practice. So it's invaluable to that staff. But that, we said that was Saban. And I think this goes for anybody. But if you get a camp offer, to me, it's always going to be the biggest deal.
And a couple more camps, Andrew, coming up today, Wednesday. I guess we should be on offer watch from those, whether it could be a 2025 or, as you said, maybe more likely 2026, 2027.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have another busy camp this week, starting today, Wednesday. We should see some big names that are going to be on campus. I know that Alabama commitment Jamarian Gordon is going to be in town this week working out. He just recently committed as a cornerback, but wouldn't be surprised if we saw him kind of move around in the secondary, see where exactly he's going to fit. But he's still 2026, but should see some more offers that get extended over the next few days, and we'll have that updated on BOL. But another busy official visit weekend upcoming. And you got to remember, this past weekend was their first wave of official visits for the entire 25 recruiting class. A lot of other schools have hosted official visitors starting in April, through May. This is the first kind of wave for Alabama, and it's they had 12 this past weekend. They should have close to 10 or more this upcoming weekend, and we should see those pretty much the same numbers over the next 3 weeks.
With that, guys, I want one or two of these upcoming visitors that maybe stand out strongly with you, because it does look like another impressive group. Tim, we'll start with you. Give us an incoming visitor or two that you're keeping watch on.
I really want to see how the unofficial with Anthony Jones does. The Mobile prospect, St. Paul, 2026. He's a big name guy. He's coming in end of the week, Wednesday or Thursday. I think he's coming in. And he's a guy he's going to have a lot of national. I think he's top 10. He's going to have a lot of national offers. He has a lot of attention. It's a chance for Christian Robinson to get to know him a little bit better and to see him around this staff, because that Wolf position, and although it's the Wolf, it's really the same. The prospects are basically the same as you saw Saban recruit for the Jack position, right? They're almost the exact same physical body types, and he's going to be one of the best in the country that year. As far as official visitors go, I'll take Michael Carroll. I think he's a guy they're battling really hard for, trying to keep him close to home. He's from Pennsylvania. I know Penn State's trying to keep him in there. Bama really likes him, have did a good job at this point. This is kind of that selling point where if you're going to convince yourself or your parents that you're willing to go this far from home, this is kind of the visit that you do that on.
What about you, Andrew? Who you have got circled maybe coming into the weekend?
I think heading into this weekend, Nick Townsend, Alabama does not have a commitment yet at the tight end position. I think Nick Townsend certainly a guy that we're keeping a close eye on. Has the top 3 of Alabama, USC, Texas A&M. Visited USC this past weekend, and Alabama really had some momentum with him in the spring. I think they still do, but now he's coming back to campus, and I think they've done a really good job recruiting him thus far. So that's a big one that I'm watching. And another one, and I think this is probably somebody that we're going to see a decision happen within the next couple of weeks, is Dawson Merritt, top 100 Wolf target that has been on Alabama's radar for a while, has Alabama and Nebraska as his top 2 schools. He's already taken his official to Nebraska, and we felt like he could be making a decision. He could have made a decision back in May, but decided to hold off. Took 2 unofficial visits to Alabama during the spring, including a late April visit where he was able to spend a lot of quality time with the Alabama coaching staff and players. It was the weekend after A-Day, so it wasn't as busy, and really has hit it off with Christian Robinson and really the entire defensive staff. So really intrigued to kind of see how things go with Dawson Merritt after this weekend.
Great stuff, Andrew. And again, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel here. We'd appreciate you doing that. Hit a like for us if you don't mind as well. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our YouTube content as it drops right here on the YouTube home for BamaOnLine. Of course, your first move should be BamaOnline.com. Go to the roundtable. I mean, that's where you're going to learn everything as it happens, all the nuggets, all the good stuff right there with these guys and the rest of our staff at BamaOnline.com, the round table. That's where you want to be. And speaking of the round table, guys, I'm going to get out of here with a fun one. Other than another inside linebacker, a commitment that if it happened today, it would break the round table. And look, I think the round table is proven to be pretty indestructible, right, at this point. But just for the sake of having a little fun, who would that commitment be, Tim? This is a little bit of a curveball I'm throwing at you guys. This is off script. It's a little bit of improv.
I think it's Juju Lewis.
Yeah.
I think that the roller coaster rides often the best part of the recruiting. We're in it, we're out of it, we're in it, we're out of it. I think his name is so popular that it would blow up. And also you got to factor is that, one of the things you love about fans and message boards, it's not just the reaction of celebrating what you got on your message board. We often see, hey guys, I'm going to the blank board. They want to go see the reaction of the teams that get them.
This comments.
Yeah, they want to see. I mean, I remember when Mark Sears announced he was back. One of the first threads I saw was headed to the Auburn board. And I thought that's an awkward flex, although I understand it. But I'm gonna go to the Auburn board. We got Mark Sears. So I thought that was funny. But I think Juju would shock and awe right now.
Kind of polarizing, I guess you could say. And that's that position, man.
Just a big name, too.
That's a big name quarterback. That's the one that's typically going to do it. What about you, Andrew?
I think Naheem Alford, in-state kid, number 1 player in state, committed to Ohio State. Alabama wasn't real. I mean, they weren't really that heavily involved. They liked him with the previous staff, but he just didn't show much interest. This new staff kind of playing from behind. So if they were able to potentially flip him away from Ohio State, that would obviously send shockwaves. So that would be mine. Long way to go there, but I think if they can get him on campus, which they should this week or next, and then for an official visit in the fall, they might have a chance.
And to be clear, right, guys, this is not
This is not
a RPM from either of you for Juju Lewis and or Naheem offered to Alabama. We have to make that very, very clear
Absolutely.
in case stuff starts getting clipped.
Oh, yeah, it's going to get clipped. 100%.
I mean, obviously, we'd be predicting Russell would be Alabama's quarterback in this class. I was staying the shock factor.
And Chuck McDonald, right? Or, maybe more so at corner.
With Juju, it's just the on again, off again for 2 years, I think would be because, you go through these recruiting for some's like a breakup. You start going, well, he was going to be ugly when he got older anyways. You start looking for reasons you don't like him, but you get emotionally attached. And you saw that with like Caden Proctor, right? We didn't need him. He gave up all the sacks. Caden, I love you. Come here, big guy. So we saw that. That's what makes recruiting special is there are people that like they're emotionally. I mean, I have guys DM me like, dude, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I was like jumping for joy when they got so-and-so. Cliff got a lot of love now. Cliff, I had grown men telling me stuff I didn't need to know. I'm not going to out their username, but they were really excited about Cliff.
Yeah, like when TJ caught the screen pass against LSU or something,
Yeah. Yes.
You look back at Juju. I mean, 2 months ago he was definitely flipping to Georgia. I mean, and it was Georgia or Alabama. Now it's Colorado or Auburn if he's going to flip somewhere. Or
who I feel bad? I feel bad for USC.
Yeah,
nobody even mentions USC. Nobody even mentions.
He gave the peace sign. My daughter got a shout out from the executive director of recruiting last night on Twitter, and he did reply with the peace, the fight on. So
that means he's sticking. Is it your birthday?
Who knows, man? I think SC's like everybody else. Probably
when people talk about his recruitment, we don't even talk that he's committed to USC, and that's not some scrub program. It's not Cal Fullerton. Travis, I just saw. Why did I just see balloons by your face?
I don't know if it's like my
Andrew. Were you not going to say anything? You saw it.
It was like I don't know what happened.
I asked if it was his birthday.
I said, what happened?
It's not. I don't know what today is.
Did we hit our subscriber goal?
I have no idea. I haven't gotten a plaque or anything.
You must be something's happening where you're getting the bubbles.
But I have no idea what that.
Congratulations on whatever happened to you.
Now I got to get off here so I can go find out what the heck just happened with the balloons because it's not a birthday that I know of. So
one of your kids might have set something up there.
Yeah, I got hacked.
A certain word.
I got hacked.
Yeah,
I need to be careful.
That's crazy though.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
And while we're talking about Juju, we get balloons. Is that a sign?
Maybe.
I'm saying.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? That's why you need to be with us at BamaOnLine.com. Hang out with these two guys. Charlie Potter, you got Joseph Hastings, you got Jimmy Stein, you got Clint Lamb, you got myself. We're there for you at BOL, the Roundtable. No other place you need to be. Hey, guys, as always, great stuff. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, we'll do a couple more shows this week, probably. I think we'll have some visitors news. Never know, there could be commitment news. That's the thing about Andrew mentioned earlier, all these guys has visits lined up, and they do. But we're curious to see if they actually take them because it's not unheard of to know where you're going well before your 5th official visit. Now, most guys aren't Tony Mitchell, who took 77 visits. Tony's probably on a visit now. Tony had the endurance for visits. I've never seen a player who could handle it like a pro. I mean, that was the thing. Most can't, though. You get to that 2nd, 3rd, 4th visit, they get kind of sick of it. You wouldn't think you'd get sick of flying to a university, having your tail kissed, steak, lobster, and all that. But I think, even the kids and parents are like, all right, enough steak.
Imagine Tony back when you could take the university jets, too. I mean, he's going commercial on these trips. And back in the day, they used to put you straight up on the university jets and fly you in. Boy, he'd have really liked that.
Tony would know how to fly if that was the case.
Yeah.
He'd be sitting up front learning. So have we heard an update on Tony?
I have not. I don't know
haven't
if
heard
Andrew
it.
has, but no,
I have
I
not
have
heard a
not.
school mentioned
No,
with
no.
Tony lately.
Hope
So
that works out
good
for
luck
him.
to him anyways. But most kids don't have the endurance for the visit. So some of these will get canceled. And on the flip side, some will get added you weren't expecting. So it's a fun, it's a it's a air quote fun time of year.
It is. Hey, Andrew, we appreciate you, my man. Always great stuff here, and certainly with us at BamaOnLine.com. Look forward to catching up to you two coming up a little bit later in the week. Welcome back, Tim. Your
Good,
presence was missed. I'll
good to be
admit it.
back.
Yeah, I'll admit it. Andrew won't, but I will. You
I
know.
think the Spaniards miss me more than y'all miss me though.
Yeah,
I'm already getting text I can't read.
yeah. There you go.
I knew Ola. That's the only word I
They
really
miss
got
your
going.
Amex card is what they miss. That's what they miss, Tim.
Hey,
So,
I did see a couple shoplifts, pickpockets in Barcelona though. That they warned me that was a real deal. It
so like
was.
European vacation style.
I mean, our first day there, we were going to get lunch, and a dude comes by screaming. A pretty nice sized dude. He's screaming, chasing somebody. We saw a guy run by, another guy chased him. I asked my wife. She said he's saying robber, and I was like, "Oh crap!" The guy. Well, people when he screamed it, the other security from the other stores. This is a nice area, good stores, ton of stores. They all came out chasing him. Well, we let the 3 or 4 minutes. We let the drama die down. Now we were going to walk where the guy ran. And I realized they'd caught him. I didn't know he was caught. And as we walked that way, I hear a oh, and I was like, they done kicked this man.
Yeah.
They done
Well, I'm
caught
sure
him.
you had some brass knuckles in your cargo shorts somewhere, so you would have been ready.
You
You know.
you gotta really get physical with me to get my wallet out of the cargo shorts. There's no pickpocket.
Did anybody try to get you guys to like stand in a fountain like the Griswolds and take your picture and then run off with your Minolta or
That's
something?
still the dumbest thing he ever did. Stand in the fountain. That's a great movie. European Vacation.
Yeah.
We did
It,
we did
it
ha-
it was it was worthy of it. Yeah, I thought
yeah.
so. We'll talk about that later in the week with Tim.
All right. Well,
All
we'll have
right.
more recruiting this week. We'll have plenty of stuff going on too.
Absolutely. So for Tim Watts and Andrew Bone, Travis Reier, reminding you to hang out with us at BamaOnline.com. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel here if you haven't already. Hit that like button for us. We would appreciate that immensely, and turn on those notifications while you're at it. Until next time, so long, everybody.